All right, Jordan. You said token for each character, like stereotypical redneck, stereotypical Cole thrashball or AKA football. Do you think were those like really really hard stereotypes? Because I know a couple of the characters, they're really stereotypical for that person's race. Um, do you think? Please elaborate and shed some light on what were you saying about the token, like the token redneck and the token black football player?
Well, I think what happens is in Gears of War, in the video games, we get kind of shorthand characters where um, they just, without actually exploring the implications of um, having multiple characters from multiple different backgrounds together, without having any sort of talk of cross pollination between, um, you know, different cultures. And I'm not saying culture as a race thing. I'm saying culture where just geographically, I mean, if you live in where we're living, like outer Mission Daly City, it's going to be different than if we're talking. It's going to be different than if we're talking in Hayes Valley in San Francisco, or way different if we're talking about someone in Oakland. Like, just by having people from different areas, from different cultures, race aside, coming together, you're going to get a cross-pollination of ideas, and you're going to get a cross-pollination of language. You're going to get all these different cross-pollinations.
I feel
what
like
happens instead in Gears of War is you get all these people who magically mesh perfectly together, and where their race is boiled down to their motivations. You get the African-American character who's all about athleticism and sports in Cole. Um, and even when they show a moment of deeper characterization in the third game where he's like, my mama taught me, right, it still goes back to these kinds of stereotypes where my mama did me right, you know? He becomes kind of, look at me, Cole, you know? And then you get Marcus, who's the, you get Dom, who's the character who's supposedly, you know, what's the more is Latino the politically correct word? I don't even know what the politically correct word is.
Yeah, I mean,
it's decently, yeah. And he's all about his wife and his daughter and his family and his friends, and instead of it's token. It's let's use things we know exist as stereotypes about each of these ethnic cultures, and let's bring them as major character traits. You get Ty, who's, you know, some kind of Pacific Islander or Samoan, and he's talking constantly about mysticism and about things that might be considered like, you know, otherworldly and spiritual. And instead, why not cast away all those assumptions? Instead, why not have these characters just be human beings instead?
I mean, they sure act like human beings.
They,
and actually, I think Marcus Phoenix was spelled with an F and not with a PH. I think I made a mistake before that. It's been a while. I when you were just talking about that, I was like, oh, you know, I don't think they spell it that way.
Yeah, but
you're right. The stereotypes, cast them aside, and maybe instead of, you know,
well, I mean, they could even still exist. Like, I'm not saying you can't have an African American character love sports or hip hop or whatever else is stereotypical. I don't know. I don't pay too much attention to stereotypes, but dive into something more interesting on top of that. Like, what if, you know, this is a terrible off the cuff example, but what if, you know, let's say Dom joined because of his family. Let's say Dom joined because the COG has something similar to the GI Bill, and he knows that when his family is, or when he comes back, his family will have money. He will be able to get an education that will allow him to, you know, go to trade school and study to be an electrical engineer or something, and his kid will have money set aside for college. Let's say that is his concrete motivation. This is all me just making stuff up off the cuff.
Yeah. I feel like those are assumptions.
Yeah,
but...
well, no, yeah, this is me making up a motivation for him on the fly. Now, his family is lost, and we get to see something else come up, which is he's there. He realizes he's there for a different reason if he continues fighting on. Maybe he has questions of desertion. Maybe he's got all these other questions. That's, of course, a very, very shallow example I brought up. But let's bring up one that's a little bit closer. Let's say Dom loves his wife and kids to pieces. But
I think he does.
Yeah. But let's say loving people is hard. Let's say loving people is not easy. And he works a job where he's constantly under a lot of stress, but he loves going to work because he's not home, because he doesn't have to deal with the familial stress, because maybe on some kind of token he loves Maria, he loves his child, but he just can't do it. And so he joins up because of that. Like you can have all these complex, interesting things come up. Or maybe the third one, like he joins up because his kid's a brat and he doesn't love his kid as much as he thought he would love his kid. Like there are all these things that could be brought up. Like love is complicated. Family is really, really, really ridiculously complicated. I mean, like it's.
Yeah, I know family's complicated. I know your brother Connor Vanderbeek, really good musician in Chicago at the moment. You love him to pieces. My brother, I don't really care for him much. 10 years apart, he treats me like he's like my second dad. And every time we're in the car together or there's a family gathering, we don't talk much. And I'll, cough. And he's like, "You sick?" And I'm like, "No, I'm just coughing." And he's like, "You sure you sick?" And I'm like, "I just said, I'm just coughing." It's like, it's very complicated. Like, I don't like my brother. I wish I had a brother who gave me noogies. And that's why
I give you noogies.
Well, yeah, that's why you're a good brother to me, Jordan. And the Freemonia guys, they're all my brothers. They're like my family. I treat them as my family. So, you're right. I mean, family is very complex, but it's kind of like the way Gears was made. Like you said, it's shoot, shoot, shoot. Little dialogue here. There are some parts like Cole, Ashman. There's parts where they go into the emotions, but they need to bring the story more because
okay, here's what's going on. You're setting up a difference between action and story, which I don't feel even needs to exist. I think that like while they're under fire, while they're bantering in any kind of way, like any dialogue you have can be deepened. There's always a way to make dialogue do like 9 things, 10 things at once. In the hands of an effective storyteller, like you can have so much subtext in every statement that's made.
Yeah, that's one thing I think Gears does that sets apart from other games. Having like when you're playing online and you jam your gun, your guy says, "Oh, God darn it, I jam my gun." I'm playing Dizzy.
Yeah.
But each character, like if I jam my gun in real life, like I'm like we were playing Horde, I sit right next to you, I'm like, "Damn it, Jordan, just jam my gun, cover me. But that character said it for me. And I was like, that's what I would have said.
Yeah.
I really like that. And I think the subtext, I feel like, I don't like playing a character that doesn't say anything. I mean, like if we're playing a game like Halo, most of the time he doesn't say anything except through the cutscenes. If I throw a grenade and I totally whiff and it goes past the Covenant, I curse at myself. But he doesn't. He's always like, I wish there was like more dialogue through battle, and it adds more to the character's personality, and then use the dialogue, the cinematics, to add more to that depth, to explore, like you said, the prisons, explore who they were, and maybe Dominic doesn't like his kid, but GI Bill, like those are really good things, and I think the whole show today, if we're talking about like Gears of War, any other game, fiction is exciting. Because without fiction, without these thoughts, without the elements and themes they put into Gears of War, if Epic Games didn't even do that, and they just did, Gears of War 1, where barely any barely any connection, just characters shooting. It's going to be a really lame game. But the reason why they put that in there, it makes the game a lot more exciting and entertaining. You get to know the characters, and we just talked about this for a very long time, and we're getting into our break, so we'll continue next.